Welcome to the Sustainable Travel Podcast. This is a podcast that interviews a range of travelers from different backgrounds to find out what sustainable travel means to them. Today, I am here with Tinaye, who is an environmental media creator and founder of Kids for Climate in Botswana, which is an organization that encourages children in Botswana to act on the environment crisis. So, Tinaye, hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You're so welcome. So you're like a super influential person to have on the podcast. So I'm really excited. So just to start off, I'll get straight into it. Can you tell us a bit about you and who you are and what it is that you do?
Okay, I'm an intersectional environmentalist. Basically, what that means is that I have the qualifications. I'm a sustainability practitioner and I'm also a climate justice activist. And basically, I'm just all over the sustainability space doing what I can.
Hmm.
I run an environmental media platform called Equable Africa. These are things that I do very passionately. I put my heart and soul into it
Yeah.
because I really do believe that the climate crisis has become a communications problem. So what I do is I spend a lot of time trying to find creative ways to package climate change for Africa, right? Because there's a very distinct distinction in what climate action looks like in the global north and for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to unpack that a little bit, you'll find that climate action for us is, you have a lot of eco brands and eco
Yeah.
pages talking about how you should recycle and reuse your tubs when you buy stuff, and those are the kind of things that we do here anyway.
Yeah.
If you walk up to anyone and you say do this and it's climate action, they will laugh in your face because it's like,
Life.
we already do these kind of things. So sustainability and climate action looks a little bit different for us.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's really what I spend a lot of time doing. I'm a mom. Yeah, so that also just really fuels my passion
Hmm.
a lot more now because I'm trying to protect the world for my
Yeah.
son so that he can grow in a better space.
That's amazing. I've already got a lot of questions just from that. So I love this phrase, intersectional environmentalist, is definitely something that I believe I am as well. I think it's really important. And when we're talking about environmentalism, I do think that quite a lot of the time, different, how to say this, like low income countries quite often get left out of the conversation, and particularly low income countries in Africa. And as you say, it's something like a lot of the time, the carbon footprint of, say, the UK, the US, a lot of Europe is so high. So the things that we're doing to reduce our carbon footprint and solve the climate crisis, a lot of other countries are already doing those things.
Definitely. Funnily enough, given that this is a travel podcast, I've never actually been on a plane myself.
Yeah.
I live in a land country.
Hmm.
We only the most common mode of transport here is road.
Yeah.
I haven't left Southern Africa before, and
Hmm.
I've only traveled on road. So some of us, I feel like when we speak of carbon footprint, most people in Africa don't have a
Yeah.
carbon footprint that's significant enough to talk about in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really what it is, to be honest. Like we have a lot of practices embedded in our culture and way of life that are sustainable.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's really necessary to rebrand or like really talk about what sustainability means for Africa and make it make sense, because the reason why people don't connect to climate action as much here is because it's coming packaged from the global north, and it's really the recycle your tubs, mend your clothes, and those are like things that we've been doing forever.
Yes.
So really, yeah, it,
Yeah.
it, it really we're not on the same level in
We're
terms of
not.
climate action, and we need something that's a bit more technical, more
Mhm.
so because for us the climate crisis means that there's going to be food shortages.
Mhm.
We are very dependent on our environment in terms of food and everything in between. So yeah, it's really, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent,
No, you're
but
not. You're not. I was just about to say. I feel like a lot of African countries will be the worst affected with climate change. And so the solutions for you guys over there, they're more important than for anybody else. But as you say, the advice doesn't quite fit.
We already are, to be honest. I feel like for the longest time we've been speaking about climate change like something that's looming and it's coming in a distant future, but it's already here. Right now, Southern Africa, a lot of countries in Southern Africa are experiencing the worst drought in 40 years. And what that means is that there's less food on our shelves. There's countries that are literally getting food aid right now, and a lot of grants to supplement food because it's really bad, you know. So I think for the life of me, I don't understand why most of these conversations on climate change or these conferences happen in very distant places. Like we have to travel so far, and I was just saying that like for someone who's been a climate activist for over 9 years, I haven't been to an international climate conference, and that's just it tells the story of how much how much the world is willing to engage us instead of actually packaging solutions for us without understanding our context, without wanting us to be part of the solutions. So yeah.
Yeah. That's really, yeah, that's very impactful. Which kind of leads into the next question I was going to ask because I love what you do. I love what I've seen from you, and what you're trying to achieve is very needed and incredible. And recently, I saw a video where you had said that kind of global understanding of Africa and the perception of African people has largely, sorry, been told from the perspective of the colonizer, which I think is a very impactful statement, really important to talk about. Could you expand a little bit on that at the moment and yeah, and let us know what that means?
Okay, so it's really a continuation of what I've been saying. The framing on Africa is that we need people that are gonna come into the continent and give us solutions, people that are going to help us, people that are going to save us. So
Mm.
there's a lot of savior complexes from colonizers
Yeah,
where solutions are involved. There isn't like a belief that Africans are inherently able to solve their own problems. You see it in the way that there's a lot of aid that comes in, and I think it's necessary, but ultimately, there's a lot of resources that are coming out of Africa,
mm,
a lot of resources that are contributing to the successes, to the economic breakthroughs of other countries in the global north, but those resources are not being taken on a fair landscape. Like what people are not dealing with Africa in terms of trade on a level playing field, right?
yeah,
And you find my opinion is that for all the resources, for everything that we're helping to build in the global north, what we get back is aid and loans. So I think
mm,
that, to be honest, there's a lot of neo-colonialist white
aspect.
supremacists. You know, there's a lot of, I don't know what the term, like I'm not very familiar with those terms, but it's giving we're still being dealt with as people that are colonized, still people that are not smart, because if you read into the subtext of the colonizers at the time, they believed in their heart of hearts that Africans don't have the same brain capacity, Africans are not intelligent.
Mm,
So my narrative, or the narrative framing that I try to push forward, is that we are capable
yeah.
of coming up with our own solutions. We just need a platform. And I wouldn't be doing justice if I don't speak about finance, like climate finance. The reason why most Africans are not able to scale, young people like myself that are brilliant. We are brilliant. We have the drive, we have the passion, but we don't have the climate finance to scale these innovative solutions.
Hmm. Hmm.
And because we understand our own problem, because it's our reality, we are best positioned to deal with that problem. And that's really what I've been saying for most of my climate activist journey, right? So I do not believe that someone will descend from somewhere to come and help us or solve our problems. we do need assist, but it's more of a support role more than actually leading the solutions themselves.
Mm.
That's what I believe.
Thank you for that really eloquent answer. I think so I guess you mean it's good to have support in the sense of understanding and listening, but essentially you guys can come up with the solutions yourselves because you are, right?
Definitely, that's exactly what I'm saying in a nutshell. We deserve to be treated like we have the agency and the drive, and like we shouldn't be coddled. We're not toddlers, you
Yeah.
know. We can solve our own problems. We just need the rest of the world to catch up. And to be honest, the Africa we want, someone that I look up to a lot said this, Miss Ahuna Eziakonwa. She's the director of the UNDP Africa, and she said something at a conference about how Africans are innovative, right? And it really struck me. And she talked about how we're innovating from a place of lack. It's
Mm,
because we intimately understand our problems. We're not innovative. We're not young Africans who are in the climate space. We're innovating. We're starting social enterprises, and we're doing all this because we really want everyone to get a piece of the pie. We really want to uplift our communities. You
mhm,
know, we have very global mindsets.
mhm,
Despite not having been out there, we think very globally, but we act locally. And to be honest, I think that with let me tie it back to what I was saying, climate finance. We need to be capacitated to to empower ourselves,
mhm,
to make a difference, to change the very thing that we're trying to fight. And Africa has the solutions. The Africa we want is the Africa the world needs.
mhm.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to get at. The Africa we want is the Africa that the world needs.
Powerful.
Everyone would benefit from an empowered Africa. Everyone would benefit from, yeah, from Africa's development,
Yes.
genuinely.
And like definitely not speaking for Africa in any sense, but having spent a lot of time in various different African countries myself, you only have to go there to agree with that. It's definitely true. And like I mean the amount of people that I've met from various different African countries, like mostly I've traveled in the east and in the south. And yeah, like there's so many, I mean, it's obvious there's so many intelligent people world over, but when you get particularly intelligent people in African countries, you're right, there is like a sense of agency that's kind of missing because of the finances. And it's difficult, and I do feel that so much more could be achieved. But how do people do that then? How do you guys get the finances that you need?
I feel that currently, if we're being honest, especially I'm going to speak about young organizers and young climate activists and everyone who's sustainable enterprising. Um, the challenge we're having is that the programming or the people that have the funds or people that do fundraising, donors essentially, they're so focused on capacity building. And that's what, for me, I'm starting to feel like that's also not a solution, right? Because right now, I would say that I've made I have my own voice. I know what I'm trying to say in
Mhm,
terms of my climate activism. But you'll find that if I try to apply for a lot of funding right now for me to drive forward my initiatives, people are offering training programs, 2 week training programs, 3 week training programs. And it's just like we need to move beyond token programming. We
mhm,
need to, if Tinaye needs 1,000 US dollars to do this and that, there should be more trust based funding based on my footprint, based on what I have done, and the kind of impact I've had in my community.
mhm,
But unfortunately, that's not the case. People are saying that young people are getting spaces to participate in climate discourse, but that's not the case. It's tokenism. the programming is token based. It's really to just say, okay, now you have a certificate. It's really for someone somewhere to tick a box and say, we capacitated 1,000 young people this year, next year. So what I'm saying is climate finance needs to be accessible to people. Young people have problems or they face a lot of challenges in mobilizing and what is it called? In organizing where they organize and they do all these interventions outside of the structure of an organization because it's tough. You need money to register a social
Yeah.
enterprise. You need do all that. But you have a lot of footprint. You're a passionate person who has done a lot. There should be accessible funding for someone like that. There should be accessible funding for grassroots organizers because we're not all willing or able to start a big organization that then will have 3 years of financial records that people can use to judge you against in terms of how well you're gonna, implement a project. So funding needs to be much more accessible to young people, like truly, truly, truly accessible.
Mm.
And yeah, I also think that climate conferences need to happen more in the places that are most affected.
Yes.
Let everyone come to Botswana. Let everyone go to Samoa and see that most of it is underwater. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
let's not have climate conferences in a place like New York, because I think those places are very much shielded from the realities of climate change. So you don't get to feel it. We're not gathering to just have the conversation in itself. If the conversation is going to make a difference, then it needs to happen in a place where the impacts are visible. So I truly believe that we should be having COP in places that are most affected by climate change. That's when it's going to sink in for everyone.
Mm, that's a very good way to do it. So if I could, just to circle back to what you were saying about the training, just briefly, if I understand what you're saying correctly, these programs exist that have funding. They're being like funding is being given out in the global West, the global North. These projects are being given out, like this money is being given to people. And they're being given the sort of autonomy and the independence to create whatever they need to create by funders, by sponsors. But that same respect is not being given to African people who are trying. It's more like patronizing, saying, well, we'll train you up first and then we'll think about that. Is that what you mean?
Somewhat. So what I'm saying is we've had a lot of training programs.
Hmm.
Tomorrow I can wake up and design a training program, and with my level of experience, I can capacitate 30 young people in my community to have a skill set to be organizers for climate change, for climate,
Hmm.
What I'm saying is the level of impact that I'm going to have as an individual should not be the same as a global organization. Like, I just think that people that have access to funding need to do way better in
Yeah.
terms of the actual outputs. Like, you can't be stuck on capacity trainings anymore. It's not good enough. You need to
Okay.
do way more than that because you have much more access than I do, but I'm able to do the same. You have organizations that will have a platform, they have the followers, they have everything. But then all they do is post infographics. Like, you can do much more than post an infographic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
Like,
mean.
you can actually like get something done. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with building capacity. It's very important because as much as young people are driven and everything, we also lack the experience to exist in these spaces and say things that are meaningful. But I'm saying that where possible, where people have the capacity to do way more than just put young people through a 2 week training and give them certificates. People should definitely use that to carry out like adaptation
Mm.
type programming, something tangible. You
Yeah,
get what I mean?
I do. It's like education is all well and good, but when this is something that's actually affecting people, why not give them instead the resources to be able to make actual change?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so to bring it back to our questions, because you did say, and I agree with you, that a lot of like perceptions of Africa are shaped by people not within Africa. What positive initiatives do we need to know about in Botswana and Southern Africa that you know of?
Okay. So I actually have multiple responses to this.
Love that.
So I'd just like to start with there's a there's a recyclable hair extension initiatives in Kenya. I didn't quite get the name yet, but it's actually like an upcoming industry there. Personally, I stopped using hair extensions because they're plastic on my hair. I decided this year, and I haven't done that all year because I was just feeling like a fraud, because I'm like, I'm fighting all this. I'm talking about plastic pollution every day, but I'm also the same person who's getting hair extensions every other day.
Hmm.
But because it's much deeper than that for a lot of people, it's rooted in culture and
Yeah.
everything. I understand that not everyone will align with this kind of decision making.
Hmm.
So I think it's important that there's people that are actually providing alternatives because I know that there's recyclable hair extensions being made in Kenya. I'm not sure if they're made of like banana
Oh,
fibers.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they're made of banana fibers and they're dyed with natural dyes and everything.
Hmm.
I think that's pretty cool, to
That's
be
really cool.
honest.
Yeah.
And then one of the my favorite things to see on the internet is something called Earth Smiles. There's a lot of organizations doing this, but Just Dig It is the most prominent one, where they're basically going into areas that have been affected by desertification, and
Hmm.
then they dig these bunds that capture rainwater, and then over some time, vegetation grows in those Earth Smiles. It's really amazing. They've done this in Tanzania
Hmm.
and Kenya, I think. So I think that's like really something that's cool that I love to see. It really makes my day when I see that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So to speak about Botswana, with Botswana, you have a lot of young people that are trying to organize in terms of some of them are doing tire pyrolysis where they're extracting oil and they're extracting all these from what is it called? From recycling tires,
Hmm.
from recycling and cleaning oils that have already been reusing oils.
Hmm.
You have Kedlipi. This is a company that has they've made solar powered backpacks to
Mm.
basically empower young people in rural areas so that they can have access to like a charging station and also
Wow, that's
like it,
cool.
it has a solar light that they can use to study,
Mm.
which is really, really amazing, honestly. Like I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But now I want us to get into my favorite thing ever,
Okay.
sustainability creatives.
Hmm.
I identify as a sustainability creative, and I'm telling you, if there's anything that's going to change people's hearts and minds, it's creative art, it's
Okay.
sustainability art, it's all those amazing things. So you have people like the Upcycle Project, who's based here in Botswana. What she does is she basically she uses glass bottles as her medium where she takes them and paints them and she molds clay around them and it's beautiful. She makes lampshades, she also has candles that are made into recycled glass bottles.
That's
So
cool.
it's really amazing, honestly, because you have a lot of people that are really thinking about how to participate in the circular economy
Hmm.
from the ground up. You have a lot of sustainable artists. People are really embracing slow fashion. They're
Yeah.
really embracing that sustainability mindset,
Hmm.
informed by the informed by what's embedded in our culture. Because I say this a lot, but I just wanted to also say it on this platform to say that Africans are sustainable people.
Hmm.
We are not wasteful, and this boils down to the way we live our lives. Everything that we do, when we cook just enough. When there's leftovers, we repurpose them. When we buy things, we reuse those containers, and it's a very big thing. Growing up, we had our grandmothers using cookie tins to
Hmm.
put like sewing kits in them. I don't know if that's something that resonates with you.
Our grandparents are very much like that. I think unfortunately in the UK, I'm like that. Like I reuse everything to the point where my husband sometimes is like, okay, I think we can let that one go. We can put that one in the bin. I'm like, no, no, I'm going to reuse everything. But our grandparents very much were like that. Like it's a part of culture that I fear we're losing. And it was really cool back in the day.
So yeah, some of the sustainable artists that I feel like, or even collectives, you have Sisonke Climate Justice Project. This is based in Zimbabwe.
Mhm.
Kuwadzana Press. These are people that are really kind of like planting trees in high density suburbs. These are people that are organizing for climate, like true climate justice.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like we use these words as buzzwords, but some people are really living that life, you know.
Yeah.
You have artists like Ngatendwe Mapako, Ule Niogandlovu, and the collective Calligraph. These are all based in Zimbabwe, by the way. These are people that are doing amazing, amazing work for climate smart agriculture, for climate. Sorry, these are people that are doing amazing work for climate sustainable art and pushing that message forward, making sure that people understand what's happening. So I just wanted to shed a light on them. There's also a lot of people, not only on the creative scene, there's so many young people. So you know that the reason why a lot of climate justice activists travel to the global north to protest is because it's not really a prominent culture here.
To
Yeah,
protest.
for a lot of different reasons. But I also wanted to add that our biggest form of rebellion as young people in Southern Africa is to take up space in the technical jobs, in the technical aspects of things. You have a lot of young people that are doing climate smart agriculture, green technology, climate finance. That and it's sometimes get quite difficult and it gets a bit discouraging because no one is willing to have those kind of people. You know, we apply for funding to go to conferences and it's just like, yeah, no, you're not the target market. We want climate activists. We want people who can go to a march, you know. And sometimes it's like
Oh,
the very high level discussions require the young people who have the technical skill set, who are actively working in that space. So all I'm trying to say is that climate activism, climate organizing and mobilizing goes hand in hand with actually taking up space and getting into these technical roles
mm,
because that's really where you get the skills to be able to effect policies that are sound because your positions, your perspectives are rooted in technical expertise,
yeah.
essentially. So yeah, I just wanted to add that a lot of young Africans are environmentalists, they're climate finance analysts, you know, they're farmers now. It's really like a big thing right now. People are getting into farming at my age. It used to be something that only the elderly do, only a certain like middle-aged people, but I actually know a very young farmer. He's 19 and he runs an organic farm right now. His name is
Wow.
Harrison. So it's really amazing, you know. So yeah, I just really wanted to also say that this is part and parcel of the reframing of Africa that I'm trying to push forward to say that African youth, some people think you know, it's a funny thing. The older generation here will think that we are too busy on our phones, we don't care enough, but we care so much so that we're willing to forgo entertaining spaces to learn technical skills. We're very practical and solution oriented.
Mm.
So that's the kind of thing that we're doing. More positive news from Africa. There's a rise in climate change laws here.
Hmm.
So you have countries like Nigeria. They established their climate change law. I think it was the first country in Africa to do that. Kenya has an act on climate change. South Africa also has a climate change response strategy and carbon tax act.
Hmm.
Zimbabwe is currently working on its climate change bill. Ghana, Botswana have climate change policies.
Mm.
So these are all things that are happening, and I think they're very positive because ultimately, when we have the legal framework for monitoring climate change related impacts and also how we deal with the global north, if we have some sort of structure there, then we're also able to implement the adaptation strategies and also what's needed for for us to make real change. It's a complicated thing to do when it's in a voluntary basis. We sign all these UN treaties, but then we don't have the actual frameworks to implement.
Mm.
So I'm really happy that there's a rise in the legal framework.
Yeah, I'm so pleased you brought that up about the what you were saying about how people can sometimes be turned down for like grants or like placements because they're not in a position where they're protesting. They're not like, I guess, the global north's idea of a traditional activist. But it's so important to note that culturally activism looks totally different in different places. And it might be the case, as you say, that this form of activism is really educating yourself. That's a form of rebellion in in a lot of cultures.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I almost forgot to say that because I really think it's important. Part of why I feel like I haven't been able to travel for my climate activism is also part and parcel of that because I've only really been doing activism to the level that I am quite recently, maybe like a year. But
Mm,
previously, I was working as a sustainability practitioner, and I
mm,
would mention that on my applications, and I wouldn't really like fit into the criteria of what the. So yeah, the perception of an activist needs to really kind of like encompass the fact that not all activism looks the same. If
mm,
we're organizing different levels, if I choose to enter a space that's predominantly um, filled with older generation, that's my form of rebellion. I'm getting into that space so I can change it from within. Like, I think we need to celebrate young people that do the hard things because it's not easy. It's quite a challenging space to be in.
mm,
Even when you have community consultations, there's a lot of disrespect. People don't take you seriously and
mm.
they ask you to go get your boss, get someone older. It's challenging, but a lot of young people are choosing to take this route because that's where real change happens. Sometimes we can't all be marching activists, right? Sometimes we need to also infiltrate and change the system from within.
Yes, I
So
love
yeah.
that. I love that. Can we, I'm sure you have other, if you have other shout outs you want to do, that's fine. But I did want to briefly touch on the idea as well, if you don't mind expanding, of women in climate activism in Africa, because obviously that looks quite different. But in my opinion, like having women at the forefront of this is vital. Like it's so, so important. Do you have anything to say about that topic?
What I will say is that most grassroots organizers, the ones that never get the funding, they're women.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't really know what it is per se, but a lot of the people that I spend a lot of time discussing strategy, how to mobilize, they are women. We
Mm.
really are in tune with how things are going. We want to make a difference, and the challenges that we face are become a barrier because okay, let me speak about myself,
Mm.
right? I'm juggling a lot right now. I'm a mom to a young boy
Yeah.
who needs a lot of attention. I also need to attend a lot of events. I need to have presence in a lot of these spaces for people to take me seriously because it's not enough to just like read a policy brief that I wrote and take it seriously. Like I also have to show face. So
Yeah.
it's quite challenging to be a woman in anywhere really because
Yeah.
people then also have to take what you're saying with a pinch of salt for some reason because it's a
Yeah.
man's world, I guess. But I'm also intersectional environmentalism came from intersectional feminism,
Amazing. Yeah.
right? So I really do believe that we can be a lot more progressive about environmentalism that comes from women, right?
Mm.
I'm saying this from a place where I remember when I was in 2021, I started identifying as an intersectional environmentalist, and that's something that wasn't as common in these parts yet. And people wouldn't really take me seriously or take any of my views for lack of a better word, nothing I said, even though it was still at its infancy, would go viral. It's just like, okay, so what, you know?
Yeah.
But the reception would be very different from people in the global north, or even just like um men or whatever. I think that people tend to, when a man says something that everyone else is saying, it's like, oh, that is brilliant. Oh my gosh, well
Applause.
done. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, well done. That's like, wow, that's such a beautiful thought. Like, you know,
Yeah.
people get put on pedestals for peddling the same thing that everyone else has been saying for years. And it's worse when you're a young woman organizing from the global south in Southern Africa. So it's just
Yeah.
like every single time I apply for something and people ask me if I identify in a certain marginalized group, I always say I'm a young woman activist from Southern Africa,
Yeah.
because that's also like a special, category of its own. It's quite hard. And I think that because of the challenges that exist, it creates this aura, or this competition. I believe in collaboration so much.
Hmm.
I came into climate activism with a lot of optimism. I'm like, I want to collaborate with so many people. I want to do this, I want to do that. And it hasn't been pretty, to be honest, because there's a lot of young people that are becoming discouraged by this space, because it gets a bit toxic,
Yeah.
in the sense that people are now using the space for selfish reasons. People are using the platforms they have to exploit other young people. And it's worse when you're a young woman. Like I said, I've had a lot of people just like use my credentials to apply for funding and that kind of thing. And then they get it and then they shut me out. It's,
Not good.
yeah.
Not good. It's
A lot is going on, Emma. Like a lot
yeah.
is going on. And it really scares me, because I think that the sustainable space thrives on collaboration. The minute we stop being collaborative, it's just a corporate space and we're greenwashing.
Mhm.
That's
Agreed.
really what I believe. I think that if the space becomes overly commercialized, it tends to corrupt everything, right?
Yeah. It's
So
like you said, think global, act local. Like we should be thinking with everybody in mind and acting with everybody in mind too, but on a local level so that people actually benefit.
yeah,
Yeah. But
definitely.
I think we need women in climate. I think that I think you're a powerhouse, to be honest. Like you're leading the way. And it's really important. It's like you said, like it's a demographic that we just don't have enough of. Like we don't have enough people from Southern Africa, young women who are coming in and saying, yeah, actually, I deserve to take up space. I know what I'm talking about. I'm well educated. I'm just as good as these big organizations. And I think you should keep doing it. I think you should keep inspiring more young people. And it's so important. The more women that we have that are educated on this issue, the fewer women will want to take a back seat. And ultimately, the more change will happen. Like you said, they're the ones leading the way.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so for me, the thing that I'm most proud of in terms of Botswana, Zimbabwe, I travel a lot between Botswana and Zimbabwe because I am Zimbabwean, but I'm based in Botswana.
Okay.
So it's the people that are organizing creatively for climate. Because
Mhm.
like I said earlier, the climate crisis has become a communications problem,
Mhm.
because the proof is there. The proof is in the pudding. It's getting hot. Everyone can feel the heat,
Yeah.
but no one is trying to have the conversation and link it to climate change because of the framing. So I think that art plays a really important role here
Mm,
in terms of framing that, in terms of connecting people, in terms of getting the message across.
mm,
If
yeah.
people are not going to listen to scientists, if people are not going to listen to climate justice activists that are protesting, they might just listen to someone who's packaging it in a way that they can enjoy and appreciate and feel connected to. So I really do believe that art is going to go a long way in helping us reach the people, because I think we as much as we need the accountable people we need to hold people accountable, the responsible people accountable. We also need climate action from individuals.
Mm.
Although we did not create the situation individually, we also feed into the impacts, right?
Yeah.
As much as um, I do not work at Shell, I drive a car. So ultimately, we all collectively need to participate in climate action
Yeah. Yes.
while holding the responsible people responsible. Because if it's a one-sided thing, it's not going to work, because it's an uphill battle trying to fight people that have been doing something for years. And sometimes really the only person that who you have dominion over is yourself. Like you
Yeah.
can control your own act.
Yeah, and I've been saying for quite a while that, yeah, it's not about the individual, but your buying power determines what other people do. Where you put your money, what you do is really important. All right. So, Tanaya, obviously, this is a sustainable travel podcast. So, we've got people listening to this who are maybe not as aware of sustainability, but they are frequent travelers. So, what would your advice be to those coming to parts of Africa? What can they do to have a positive impact when they travel?
So for people that would love to travel to Africa for the wildlife, and it's beautiful, trust me. I don't get to travel to see it a lot because it's expensive. But um, I do think that the best thing that I can say is that the best way to have a positive impact is to have the least minimum impact like possible, right? Because with these wildlife places, the best thing is to leave it untouched. Don't leave your mark. Like enjoy it, travel to see the places, but we shouldn't know that someone from the US was there, someone from the UK was there. Like, don't leave snack packs so that we can see that, yeah, no, these snacks are foreign. And, that kind of thing where you're just like, okay, an American was clearly here. Okay, like someone from the UK was clearly here. Like, that's not, I think that the reason why they've maintained the beauty is because we have somehow successfully managed to make sure that these spaces stay pristine. We've managed to limit the human interaction, so to speak. So this is obviously for wildlife management areas, right? We do have communities that live close to there, but they have somehow managed to coexist with these animals where they have. Trust me, in Botswana, we have a lot of issues with wildlife, human conflict in the areas where there's a lot of elephants.
Yeah.
Um,
They're
so this might be a
destructive.
bit unpopular, but I feel like I wouldn't be doing myself justice or the situation if I didn't say this. With the elephants, there's actually like a controversial thing that happens with
Culling.
conservation activists, right? Recently, because of the drought, I did mention we've been in the worst drought in 40 years. There
Mm.
was an issue about how the Zimbabwean government has decided to cull some elephants to provide meat for some people, and to also reduce the population of the elephants because there's so many of them.
Mm.
And usually, when there's too many in one place, they have a population crash.
Mm.
Um, so it's an interesting thing. I don't know if you're gonna leave this, but to be honest, being rooted in truth, I used to be opposed to culling of elephants before I spoke to wildlife conservationists, and they told me that it's necessary. Like I was the same. I would be there in the comfort of my house, not knowing any better, and I'm just like tweeting, save the elephants, and like it's quite interesting because I'm only mentioning this because Botswana has the largest herd of elephants.
In
I think of
Chobe.
white elephants in the world,
Mm.
and they're very majestic. They're good to see, but we also have a very slippery death toll in terms of like when people interact with them and lives are lost, and wildlife. What is it called? And farming, and people are losing their livelihoods because of these elephants.
Hmm.
Personally, my own father had his produce, the whole field. They ate the whole field, and he didn't really get compensated for it.
Mm.
You know, so these are some of the challenges that we face in terms of our maintaining the beautiful wildlife that everyone gets to enjoy.
Mm.
Um, we are proud that we have kept these resources as long as we have, but it's also very challenging. It's a very challenging thing. It doesn't come without challenge. So I think that's something that I'd like people to appreciate, to know that the wildlife that you get to enjoy sometimes is coming at the expense of someone else's comfort in that space.
Mm.
This also speaks to the paradox of plenty. Most of the communities that are around those wildlife management areas, around those parks, are the poorest in our countries.
Mm.
And it really begs the question. It's like, if we're making so much out of tourism, out of you visiting our countries, why are these communities so poor still? You know, so also that's to say that as much as you are interacting with wildlife when you visit these places, also remember that there's a human aspect to it. There's people that live in those neighboring communities. Don't just come for the animals, also come to understand their context, also come to understand their way of life,
Yeah.
because it will enrich your own. It will also shape, it will help your perspective of the kind of people that live in Africa. Because I think Africa is not just about the animals, it's also about its people.
Yes.
So you wouldn't be doing yourself justice if you just came for the animals.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective as someone who has like regularly traveled through Africa I mean, I'm privileged for having done that. I'm lucky, but I would always say go for the people as well. Like stay in local guest houses, stay in local hotels, meet as many people as you can because you will learn a different perspective from your own. And also, like you said, remember that at the end of the day, they don't exist to serve tourists. Like African people also have full and rich lives of their own. And sometimes the impact that a tourist has only going to just national parks and only staying like to see the animals, your money might go to the people who own the lodges, the safari lodges, which may not be African people. It's so important. It's
Yeah,
something I'm super passionate
actually.
about. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so in terms of that, like I also just wanted to add that, with travel to some of these places, it's really quite expensive for us, you know. It tends to feel like local travel really to our tourism isn't really for us.
Yeah,
It
it's
becomes
expensive for
something that
us. So it must
yeah.
be expensive for you guys as well.
Yeah, some of the costs are subsidized because we're closer.
Mhm.
Like I think it's like environmental economics stuff, but ultimately it really is still quite expensive to actually go and relax in these places, because the the hospitality industry, really, some of it doesn't really, like we also we always jokingly say the tourism isn't for the locals, which is sad, really, because if you have the resource, you should be able to enjoy it just as much as people that are coming from faraway places. You
Yes.
have children that have lived in the capital city their whole lives, and they haven't been to these spaces. They haven't been to these places. So when you get into rooms where you need to talk about climate change, they sometimes they can't relate to the resource because they don't know it. They don't have access to it, which is something that I really think is a shame.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. And from a tourist perspective, I would just say that maybe that might discourage people from going. Um, and maybe you want to add to that and explain whether you do think people should or shouldn't go to these places. But from my perspective, I would say go, but make sure that your money goes to the right place so that everybody can be lifted up and that they can also enjoy it when they get a little bit more financial aid from you actually supporting their business. But you add what you think.
No, I'm definitely on the same page with you.
Mm.
I really do value the tour. Like, don't get me wrong, the
Yeah,
tourism, however it looks, is good for our GDP. It's good for our economy.
yeah,
But like it should go beyond the numbers for the nation as a
yeah,
whole. the tourism should be rooted in, it should be people centered.
Yes.
That's really what I would say. Please do travel to Africa, travel to as many countries as you should, but connect with the people because they have
Yeah.
amazing stories to tell you. They have perspectives that will really change your life.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that's
That's
really
my opinion too.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And okay, so now to come to your project, you are doing amazing things to educate children and people in Botswana. Can you tell us a little bit more about Kids for Climate, and how can people get involved? Like, how can people get involved when they travel?
Yeah, so I started Kids for Climate. It was born from necessity, to be honest, because when I became a mother, long before that, in 2018, I started Kids for Climate, but it was called Art for the Environment because I've always believed that art should be used to raise awareness about the environment.
Hmm.
Then in August 2023, that's really when I established a working model for it. So what I do is we really have fun, to be honest. I think climate change is already depressing. The climate crisis is a depressing topic to discuss with anyone, especially if you spend a lot of time thinking and pouring into it and using up all your energy to organize for that. So I have fun with these kids. We talk about climate change and I explain it as something that's I really explain it in a very age appropriate way.
Hmm.
For example, we have these workshops
Yeah.
where we basically just sit around with a circle and we discuss what's happening.
Hmm.
Sometimes when you say climate change, it becomes a very scary thing, but sometimes we just talk about weather events. It's just like, do you realize how hot it's been this past few years? You just break it in a very casual way because unfortunately for most of the children here, they only get to interact with climate change in the textbook, where it's telling them that climate change is it's the variability, it's the change of weather within a long period of time. And that's the definition, and that's all the interaction they get about climate change, which I think is not fair considering that they're the most affected.
Mm.
February 2024 was the hottest month in Botswana in a very long time.
Mm.
And we had a lot of kids passing out, they were sick. So it's really something that's alive, it's something that's real and it's happening to them. I don't think that they should be excluded or even not told what's happening. The least we can do is try to prepare them for a
Mm.
changing climate
Mm.
and also just like hope that by exposing them to big concepts like climate smart agriculture, they also then become the leaders that we don't currently have. They
Yeah.
take up space and they make the world a little bit better for the
Mm.
next for the generations to come because
Yeah.
we expose them at a young age. It's very difficult to get through to people that are grown and
Mm.
set in their ways. So I really believe that talking to children is an important thing. We need
Yeah.
to create a mentality of green jobs, circular economy right now
Yeah.
because
100%.
they're always going to have that at the back of their mind when they're planning for the future and taking up spaces in offices and high places and etc. So yeah,
Yeah.
if anyone would like to, I do have a presence on social media.
Hmm.
So the page is called Kids for Climate Action Botswana.
Hmm.
This is on Instagram and Facebook. Working on a website, but really, we also do some crowdfunding on Giveth.io. It's like a crypto-based funding thing.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure that stuff out. So I think I'll just share the
Yep.
links with you, and then maybe you could
Absolutely.
also put that in the description.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely. I think that for the past year, I've noticed how much I can get done as an individual without virtually any funding.
Hmm.
I haven't received any sort of funding support for this, but I have had the help of people who engage me. I've gone on a panel discussion at the UNDP talking about this program.
Mm.
So there are people that assist in kind. And that's really all we need, to be honest. Not everything is about funding and money. It's
Hmm.
just people that are willing to give you an audience, people that are willing to participate
Mm.
in these programs. So,
Yeah. And what do
yeah,
you think? Like,
engagement is also a form of participation.
That's good. So what do you need from people who want to get involved? Like they can do funding. We'll definitely share that link in the bio in the description. But is there something else like tangible they can give you that would be helpful right now?
Something tangible would be to follow our journey,
Yeah.
to engage with us, basically become a part of our community.
Hmm.
That would be the most beautiful thing because, like I said, there's a lot of ways to get a thing done, and not everything is about money. So we would really appreciate just people's engagement with
Yeah.
our work,
Hmm.
people's engagement on our platforms, just to also encourage us to keep going because
Yeah.
it's not without challenge, but
Yeah.
it's worth it. So we would love engagement. You know, you actually said this in a call where you said that engagement is about community. So what we really want is a community.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it shows the kids like people care. People want you to be like growing up as the leaders of our future. Like, it's super important. Like go follow this page. So it's Kids for Climate Botswana or just at Kids for Climate?
Kids for Climate Action, Botswana.
Kids for Climate
Yes.
Action Botswana. That will also be in the bio. And then Tanaya, just last question. So what else are you working on? Because I know you've got a huge range of projects. What else are you working on at the moment and where can people find you specifically?
Okay, so I'm at Eco Girl Africa,
Hmm.
Eco Girl Africa. So
Yep.
that's really what I spend a lot of my time doing, environmental communication on that specific platform.
Hmm.
I also do climate justice activism. I'm actually traveling for the very first time, like I said, to an international conference in Uganda
Hmm.
in the coming week. But that's also a prelude to the biggest opportunity of my career so far. I'm going to be traveling to Europe for 5 weeks. So it will be interesting for us to actually have a chat with me
Yes.
having traveled to Europe after never having left Southern Africa. I
Yeah.
think that would be very interesting. I'm looking forward to the contrast. I'd like to, I'm looking forward to having fun and
Yeah.
also just learning about the European way of life in the different spaces I'm going to be in. I'm
Yeah.
going to France, I'll be in Belgium, Slovenia, Switzerland. I think we're also going to do Germany, yes.
Yeah. My favorite.
Yes, so it's quite exciting to be honest. I'm very, very excited. I'm looking forward to it because we are gonna be meeting with like-minded people, climate justice activists.
Hmm.
We're actually hoping for engagement during this tour to also inform us, right? Because we have our own perception built by where we're from. So
Yeah.
we would like to understand a little bit more about the global north and how things work. We are going to be having high level discussions with the European Parliament. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff.
Super cool.
But really, I'm also excited to meet some people
Yeah.
and inform my own perspective as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
gonna be amazing. But yeah, so we did chat about you're probably going to be our first recurring guest because we'll come back and have a second chat about how your perception was, how it was to travel as a climate activist and also an eco content creator and an artist and how that all went for you. So I'm really excited about that too. So people can find you on at Eco Girl Africa. That will also be in the
Yes.
Spotify description.
Yes.
Okay, so unless you have anything else to add, I will wrap up.
Yeah, no, I think we've really covered a lot of bases, but I just also wanted to say thank you for giving me the platform.
So welcome.
It's important to have this platform to participate in my own representation. This is something that I say to a lot of people, and for whoever's watching, I don't know where you're from, but I encourage you to participate in your own representation. If someone is saying things about your part of the world or your way of life, that isn't factual, make sure to speak up because it's really all about connecting. It's all about learning from each other because sometimes the geographic is a barrier in us learning about each other. But we have social media now, so let's use that to connect and just become global citizens. So that's what I'd like to say in closing.
I love that. That's a really good closing statement. So This has been the Sustainable Travel Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at the Sustainable Travel Podcast, or you can listen to all episodes on Spotify and YouTube at www.thattravel.co.uk/the-sustainable-travel-podcast. Thank you very much, Tinaye.
Thank you so much.